Hello everyone, my name is Ignacio Martinez, and the following presentation would be on Alfred Eisenstaedt. He was German American and lived between the years 1898 to 1995. The following quotes are from Mr. Eisenstaedt himself. All photographers have to do is find and catch the storytelling moment. It's more important to click with people than to click the shutter. Alfred Eisenstaedt. After reading these two quotes, I hope you can see Eisenstadt's passion for photography. Alfred Eisenstaedt was born in Dachau, which is now Poland. At the young age of 17, he was drafted into the German army during World War I, where he nearly lost both legs. Grateful to be alive, Alfred Eisenstaedt returned to Germany after World War I was over. Due to Germany's economic decline of post-war, he was forced to seek employment, which led him to selling buttons and belts for 10 years. According to Encyclopedia of World Biography, the 1920s was when Eisenstadt's interest to photography sparked thanks to the Ermanox camera. Years later, in 1925, a friend taught Eisenstaedt how to enlarge photos. He was so fascinated that his first darkroom was in his family's bathroom. Alfred Eisenstaedt died August 23rd, 1995, at the age of 95 in Massachusetts. I will now continue by talking about Eisenstadt's photographic career. Because of the oppression in Hitler's Nazi Germany, Eisenstaedt immigrated to the United States in 1935. By 1936, he was one of four photographers hired by a new magazine at the time called Life. The other three photographers were called Margaret Burke White, Thomas McAvoy, and Peter Stackpole. Eisenstaedt produced over 2,500 photographs, and 92 ended up on the cover of Life magazine. In 1954, he held his first one-man exhibition at the International Museum of Photography in New York. And finally, in 1989, Eisenstaedt was awarded with the National Medal of Arts by the United States President at the time, Mr. George Bush. The next image should be familiar to everyone living in San Diego, because there is a huge sculpture of it at Seaport Village. The photograph is called VJ Day in Times Square, and it is one, if not the most famous, of Eisenstadt's photographs. According to Mary Warner, Eisenstadt's intent was to capture the spontaneous events that occurred in Times Square as the excitement of the war on Japan was made by President Harry Truman. The photograph itself is of an American sailor grabbing and kissing a stranger that appears to be dressed as a nurse. The following image does not depict such a happy scene. While the name of the photograph is the one shown, it is better known as The Eyes of Hate. The male sitting down is a Nazi politician named Joseph Goebbels, and story goes that he was talking to Eisenstaedt in a good, cheerful mood until Eisenstaedt revealed that he was a Jew. Eisenstaedt was able to capture his exact reaction, portraying a sense of hate and evil to the photograph. Eisenstaedt captured ordinary moments that were, I quote, ordinary. Yet his photographs depicted nonverbal messages to the audience, whether it was humorous or in this case touching. In this particular photograph, a ballet teacher is giving pointers to little girls at their first ballet lesson. This photograph correlates with what I said in the previous slide. Eisenstaedt was able to find humor into an ordinary scene. The ice skating waiters at the Grand Hotel were a very popular attraction during the 1930s. Eisenstaedt also photographed another symbolic picture in history, capturing Britain's Prime Minister Winston Churchill, making a V with his index and middle finger, symbolizing V for victory. This next photograph impacted me personally. It shows two innocent people who were victims of the Hiroshima bombings. That, yes, ended a horrific war, yet with just this one picture, Eisenstaedt was able to convey the gargantuan impact the bombings had on innocent people, like the mother and child in the photograph. Eisenstaedt photographed famous Hollywood stars such as this well-known actress Marilyn Monroe. This is a portrait of her on the patio of her home in Hollywood. Not only did Eisenstaedt photograph movie stars, he also photographed probably the most famous of scientists, Albert Einstein. The photograph shows Einstein in mid thought, writing down in what seems to be his house at Princeton, New Jersey. Over his career, Eisenstaedt photographed a diverse range of subjects, President Clinton being part of the list. The photograph tries to convey a sense of approachableness with the loose posture and the kid friendly tie. I found this photograph very unique and interesting to observe. John F. Kennedy was also a president he photographed. According to Time, Eisenstaedt famously carried with him an autograph book that by the end of his life was filled with page after page of signatures from long forgotten artists, legendary athletes, powerful world leaders, in short, from anyone and everyone he happened to shoot. This photograph is of President John F. Kennedy autographing Eisenstadt's autograph book, proving that what Time said is true. This next photograph is Eisenstadt sitting on top of a former sumo wrestling champ called Tomohiro Sakata. The size comparison between these two is very humorous. This proves that Eisenstadt loved interacting with the subject. Here's another photograph of him interacting, maybe even flirting with the subject, Marilyn Monroe, during the previous photo session I showed earlier in the presentation. Here is Alfred Eisenstaedt casually having a good time with Walt Disney in 1946. And finally, to end on a good note, here is Mr. Eisenstaedt posing with such joy next to the first woman to star her own daily exercise TV show. After seeing all these pictures and getting a sense of how Alfred Eisenstaedt was behind the camera, don't you wish you got to at least speak with the guy? Alfred Eisenstaedt helped define American journalism by creating over 2,500 pictures, stories, and 90 covers for Life magazine. Eisenstadt's prestigious career lasted more than half a century, photographing memorable images, important politicians, movie stars, artists, and even scientists. Again, he was one of 4 original photographers hired by Life magazine. According to David Friend, director of photography and new media at Life, said that Mr. Eisenstadt's work embodied what Life magazine stood for. In conclusion, Alfred Eisenstaedt was significant to photography not only because of the meaning and importance behind his photographs, but also because of his energy and enthusiasm when taking them. Thank you.